Hello, I'm Paul from SET English, and I'm just doing another video here, an introduction video about OET speaking, what the format is and what we can expect. Okay, so in terms of contents, what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at what the task is, task details and timings, how you're examined, and some useful principles. So it's just a basic kind of introduction into what OET speaking is. Okay, so let's start with the task. All right, the format and what to expect. Okay, so the first thing that we need to remember is that when we are doing OET speaking, you should remember that you're going to do two consultations between a healthcare professional, that will be you, and a patient or a patient's carer. Okay, that's what you're doing. All right, consultations between a healthcare professional and a patient or a carer. So you've all been there, you've all done it. Lots of you guys are doctors, nurses, physios, pharmacists, vets, etc. You've all spoken to another person about some healthcare needs. It's just you two, it's a dialogue, and what the task will look like is something like this. Okay, here's an example. So let me show you it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a few little things on here. Okay, and draw your attention to them. So first of all, we've got this, which is the setting. All right, that's where something happens, where something takes place. In this case, it's a local medical clinic. All right. Next, you've got the kind of the situation, the context. What's the situation here? So here we've got, it tells you about your patient, a 45-year-old office worker. They're feeling tired, they're feeling unwell. They appear to be overweight. They think they have diabetes, and they've decided to come in and get a checkup for diabetes. So when you look at this section here, it should give you a good sense of what the situation is, what the context is, where you are, who you're speaking to. Okay? Now next, when we look down at this section here, let's turn this to red for important. Okay? When we look at this section here, you've got the task. Well, it really should be tasks, because what you can see in each part here, you can see things like find out things, explore things, discuss things, briefly explain things, outline things. These are all verbs which are instructions to you. You have to do these things. So what do you have to find out? You have to find out how the patient's feeling. Okay, and that means find out about symptoms, find out about any concerns. Okay, then what will happen is the patient will have their card, or the interlocutor in the exam will have their card, and they will respond. And they'll say, oh God, I've been feeling, and you'll have to find out more about it. So here you'd say something like, I'd like to talk to you about your lifestyle. And then you break down and you talk about exercise, work-life balance. So you've got a number of different tasks to do from here down to there. And you have to show certain skills throughout that conversation that show the examiner that you're a really, really good speaker in a medical setting. Okay? So that's what we really have to do. Okay? What we have to do is we have to manage that conversation from start to finish, hopefully, and all the way through it, exhibit really, really good behaviors. So let's talk about timings. All right. So in terms of timings, you've got 3 minutes to prepare. Okay. 3 minutes. You get given the cue card, and you can write on it. You can write notes if you want to. You can also ask certain questions to the interlocutor who you're speaking to. Then you have to do the task for 5 minutes. All right, you're going to do that task for 5 minutes, and you're going to do the task twice. Okay, this consultation is done twice. Okay, two consultations, 5 minutes each. All right. So that's just some basic information. And when you're preparing, you should be trying to do it with these timings in mind. Okay, so we've talked about the basics of the task. Obviously, you can learn much more about the different types of tasks, and you can learn a lot about different settings, different ways of introducing tasks, different things that you're asked to do in those tasks. But that requires you to go and do some more detailed study. Let's move on and talk about how you're examined. Okay. Now, the way you're examined is in two ways. There's two sets of criteria. The first one is a linguistic criteria. Okay. Now, what you've got here, if you look across, is you've got intelligibility, fluency, appropriateness of language, and you've got resources of grammar and expression. So basically, how well you speak English. That's what the linguistic criteria is. And this is 60% of your score. How well you speak English. So it's really important that you get loads of experience of listening to English, speaking English, watch documentaries and healthcare dramas, things like that, where you learn that kind of language. And then you've got another criteria called clinical communication criteria. And you can see that that's quite a complicated chart. That chart has got A, B, C, D, and E, all of the different indicators: relationship building, understanding and incorporating patient perspective, providing structure, information gathering, and information giving. And what you have to try and do is you have to try and show examples of those different indicators. That's what they call them. So it's really important to learn what these indicators are. If you don't know what they are, then there's a good chance that you won't satisfy the examiners. And the examiners are going to be listening to your recording of your conversation and examining according to this list and the linguistic criteria. Okay, so useful principles for you to remember about OET speaking before you get started. Okay, first of all, make your consultation patient-centered. Now, I know that in real life, when you speak to patients, you do this. Okay, that's part of everybody's training. It's all about trying to get the information from the patient, make the patient feel listened to, and then when you're explaining things to patients, making sure that they understand. But in the exam, when you're under pressure and you're feeling a bit nervous, okay, then what might happen is you might start to panic a little bit, or you might focus a lot on what you're saying and not think about the patient. So try and remember the patient. It's very, very important. Next, you don't have to finish. Okay, lots of people rush through their whole thing because they think that they have to finish, and they don't. You don't have to finish. Okay. Next, the techniques that you learn to begin with, the indicators, the kind of behaviors, they can feel a little bit unnatural. So doing things like the menu technique. First, I'd like to talk about this, and then I'd like to talk about that. Or chunking your explanations, breaking them down into small sections. They can feel a little bit unnatural to begin with. But when you practice them, they soon become natural. And when you listen to people who are really good at OET speaking, you can point out all of the things that they've practiced. They're not just naturally brilliant at English. They're really good at using techniques which tick off the boxes in the examiner's criteria. So that's what's really important. Okay, so let's just go back over. 3 minutes to prepare, 5 minutes to do the task. You're going to be speaking to a patient or a patient's carer. There are going to be 2 of those consultations in your exam. You've got 2 sets of criteria: how well you're speaking English and how well you can manage a professional conversation. You need to make it patient-centered and try and include as many of these techniques that you can learn from good premium providers of OET as possible. Okay, I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.